It's a real honour for me today to meet Sir John Whitmore, who's got some passionate ideas about education. So Sir John, would you tell me about what your view is on education, please?
Well, there are several things that I think need to be looked at very seriously by the education establishment as a whole. And the first one is perhaps quite a challenging one, is that I think we ought to be focusing more on learning than on teaching. Children have an extraordinary ability to learn a lot when they are very young without being taught. They learn to walk, they learn to run, they learn to throw a ball, they learn to catch, they learn to manipulate their mother to give them chocolate. And they didn't get taught to do those things. So that capacity is already there. It's sometimes been said we learn more between 0 and 5 than we learn in the whole of the rest of our lives. And then what happens at around 5 is teaching comes in. And when teaching comes in, I suggest, and this is an oversimplification, that natural capacity to learn gets set on one side or gets overwhelmed, shall we say, by the teaching process. So I think that a great transformation in education would come when we have more respect for the natural learning and the natural capacity in children, and we foster that more than direct prescriptive teaching. So that would be one of the major changes I would want to see in education. Another would be that I think we lose an opportunity to early in life to begin to build a sense of self-responsibility in our children. And we could say that in adolescence they tend to rebel against the authority of the parent or the school teachers or so on. But would they rebel so strongly if they had more choice earlier on in life, so they didn't have to rebel against things? It's perhaps a head of steam that gets built up that causes them to rebel in adolescence. I believe very strongly that we should give children choices from very early on in life, the clothes they want to wear today and so on, and not immediately tell them, oh, that's going to be too cold. Let them find out that that's too cold, and then don't judge them for it, but take them back in the house and say, okay, let's get changed into something you feel will be comfortable in this temperature, and so on. So they begin to make choices, because we learn self-responsibility by making choices, and choices always have consequences. So of course, as we get older, the consequences are bigger consequences, and then we have to make more serious choices. But if that process is begun at, say, 4, 5 or 6 years old, by the time young children are riding a bicycle, or they're in gangs, or they even have gang friends who have knives, or later on they're beginning to drive a car, and so on and so forth, they have a capacity for self-responsibility that has been built by them having to make choices. So that's the second thing. The third thing I think is enormously important, and that is, if you ask a parent or a child or even a school teacher, why do children go to school, there will be a tendency for them to say, to get a qualification in order to get a job. And I think school is much more important than that. I think school is to prepare children to go forth into the journey of life. And that's what we need to be doing. And we are focused too much on the league tables, of course, on, shall we say, knowledge instead of wisdom. They need more of the human skills. We ought to focus more on the human skills. We ought to build emotional intelligence in children. And we're focused too much on preparing people for a job and for the convenience of the economic system we have. We want them to have certain skills, but is that best for them to go forth into life? And those are people who have studied the impact of emotional intelligence will say time and time again, the most successful people, very often the successful people in the workplace, they are successful more because of their emotional intelligence, their capacity to build good relationships. That is more important than the knowledge that they've acquired. So there's a rebalancing there. The distortion began in probably at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when we got focused on engineering and knowledge and technology, and that skewed our education across to that side, and we need to rebalance that now. And there is a journey of evolution, there is a journey of self-development, and we need to tell children, or have children realize, that when they go forth from school, they have a journey of life to go into, and during that journey of life they'll have successes, they'll have failures, they'll have disappointments, they'll have great joys, and that's all part of the life learning that they're going into. Isn't that a more exciting message to leave with children when they leave school, rather than now you can get a job?